Where the Light Stays. Chapter 1: The Thin Air. He met her again after 20 years, in a town too small to carry the weight of memory. The mountains were closer than he remembered, and the air thinner. She smiled like someone who'd forgiven everything but hadn't forgotten a thing. He wanted to say her name, but it caught in his throat like smoke. They were standing in front of the post office, the same one where she used to wait for him when he came off the late shift at the lumber yard. The paint was new, but the smell of pine and dust hadn't changed. She held a letter in her hand, and for a second, he thought it might be for him. "Didn't think you'd still be here," she said. "I didn't think I was," he answered. Her laugh came quick, then softened. "You always talked like that. Like you were half somewhere else." He shrugged. "Guess I still am." She nodded, eyes tracing the horizon. The mountains pressed against the sky like something that couldn't be ignored. "You back for good?" she asked. He looked past her to the old Ford parked by the curb. Dust on the windshield, a single bag in the back seat. "Just passing through." "People always say that," she said. "But this town has a way of holding on." He wanted to tell her the truth, that he'd been drifting for so long he wasn't sure what through even meant anymore. But she was watching him with that same stillness she'd had when they were young, and he didn't want to ruin the moment with honesty. They walked down Main Street together, saying nothing for a while. The town was smaller than it used to be, or maybe it had just emptied out. The barbershop was gone, replaced by a feed store. The diner was still there though, the one with the cracked sign and the same smell of bacon grease that never quite left your clothes. When they went inside, the bell above the door gave a tired ring. A waitress with silver hair and good posture smiled. "Well, look who's back," she said. "Didn't think I'd see you again, Tom." "Didn't think I'd be back," he said. She poured them coffee before they sat. The cups were chipped but clean. Ellen stirred hers slowly. "You still take it black?" "Don't know any other way." "I remember," she said. Then after a pause, "You used to hate this place." "I didn't hate it," he said. "I just didn't know how to stay." "That's the same thing, isn't it?" He looked out the window. A truck passed, slow and loud. The same dust rose and settled again. "Maybe it is." They talked about small things. How her brother had gone to Arizona. How the mill shut down. How winters had grown shorter but harder. When the conversation slowed, she reached into her bag and pulled out the letter he'd seen earlier. "It's from my daughter," she said. "She's in Portland. Teaches art at the college there." He smiled faintly. "She must get that from you." Ellen laughed. "No. She's got talent. I just painted the scenery once, remember? I never knew what I was doing." "I remember," he said. "That little cabin by the river. You dragged me out there after work and make me sit still while you painted the same tree over and over." "I like that tree," she said. "It didn't ask questions." He smiled at that. "You were good. Better than you thought." "Too late for compliments now," she said, but her eyes softened. "You married?" He shook his head. "Tried once. Didn't take." "Why not?" He looked down at his hands. "I wasn't made for staying." Ellen nodded. "Maybe none of us were." Outside, the wind picked up. It carried the dry smell of sage and rain that never quite came. "You know," she said quietly, "I used to think about you when the snow fell. When the nights got long. You were always somewhere warm in my mind. Not real, but close enough." He looked at her. "I thought about you too. More than I should have." She met his eyes steady. "Then why didn't you come back?" He thought about the years, California, Nevada, the oil rigs, the noise, the long drives to nowhere. All the women whose names he didn't remember and whose faces blurred in the smoke of cheap bars. "I didn't think you'd want me to," he said. "You thought wrong," she said. They left the diner when the sun was low. The air had cooled, the kind of cold that creeps up on you without warning. He walked her to her car. It was old but clean, the kind of car someone keeps because it still runs. "You still live by the river?" he asked. "I do," she said. "Same place. I fixed the roof myself last spring. You wouldn't believe how much I cursed at those shingles." He smiled. "Sounds about right. You could come by," she said. "If you're not leaving tonight." He looked toward the mountains again. The peaks were already losing their color. "I wasn't planning on staying," he said slowly. "You weren't planning on running into me either." she said. That made him laugh. A quiet, real laugh that surprised them both. No, he said. I wasn't. She started the car then stopped. I'll leave the porch light on in case you change your mind. He watched her drive off. The sound of her engine faded into the dry evening. The light stayed behind, the kind of light that waits without asking questions. He drove for a while. Out toward the edge of town, past the empty fields and the rusted fences. The road curved toward the river, and before he knew it, he'd followed it. The cabin looked smaller. The paint had faded to a kind of honest gray. The porch light burned steady just like she said. He sat in the truck for a long time, engine idling, listening to the quiet. Then he turned it off. The silence pressed in. He could hear the river moving slow behind the trees. When he finally knocked, she opened the door right away. I knew you'd come, she said. He didn't answer. She stepped aside and he walked in. Inside, the house smelled of cedar and bread. There were books stacked everywhere, and a painting on the easel by the window, a half-finished landscape of the valley below, sky bleeding into mountain. I never got it right, she said, noticing his eyes on it. You got close, he said. She smiled. Close doesn't count much in painting. It does in everything else, he said. For a while they didn't talk. She poured them both whiskey, 2 fingers each. The kind you sip slow, not to forget but to remember differently. They sat by the fire. The sound of the river filled the pauses. You still restless? She asked. He nodded. Always. You think that'll ever stop? He shook his head. Don't think so. It's the only thing that feels honest. She looked at him for a long time then said quietly, then stay restless here. He looked at her. That an offer? It's not a promise, she said. But it's something. He reached out and touched her hand. It felt the same warm, steady, real. You ever wonder, he said, how different it would have been if I hadn't left? All the time, she said. But wondering doesn't change anything. Only now does. He nodded. Now's hard. She smiled. Everything worth anything is. They talked until the fire burned down. About the years, the places, the people they'd lost. About how time can stretch a single choice into a lifetime. When she went to refill their glasses, he looked again at the painting. The river wound through the valley like a scar that refused to heal. He thought it was beautiful. You should finish it, he said. I will, she said. If you come back tomorrow. He wanted to tell her that he would. That he'd wake up early and bring her coffee from the diner and sit on that porch until the light changed. But he only said, maybe. She smiled, knowing what that meant. When he left, the night was cold enough to sting. He drove down to the river and parked. The moon was high, sharp on the water. He stood there for a long time, hands in his pockets, the air burning his lungs. He thought of her porch light, still glowing somewhere behind him, and of all the years he'd spent chasing things that never stayed. He didn't know if he'd go back in the morning. He only knew that he wanted to, and for him that was a dangerous kind of wanting. He looked up at the mountains, their outlines dark and patient against the stars. Maybe, he said aloud. The word hung there a while, then disappeared into the thin air. Chapter 2: The Morning Light. The morning came slow, sliding through the blinds like it was shy to wake him. Tom lay still, eyes on the ceiling, listening to the house breathe. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen, and for a moment he forgot where he was. Then he remembered the river. The firelight. Her voice saying, "Stay restless here." He sat up. The air was cool enough to see his breath. His boots waited by the door, still dusty from the drive. When he walked into the kitchen, Ellen was already there. Barefoot, wearing an old sweater that hung off one shoulder. She looked younger in the morning light. Or maybe just unfinished. "Didn't think you'd still be here," she said without turning. "I didn't think I'd be either." She smiled faintly. "Coffee?" He nodded. She poured him a cup and slid it across the table. No sugar, no cream. He took a sip. It was bitter and good. "You always did like mornings," he said. "I like the part before they start," she said. "Before the noise." They sat like that for a while, listening to the sound of the river through the open window. "You still paint out there?" he asked. "Every day," she said. "Even when I shouldn't." "Why shouldn't you?" She looked at him over her cup. Because sometimes it keeps me from living. He nodded. I know the feeling. After breakfast, she went outside to work. He followed, staying a few steps behind. The ground was damp, soft under his boots. The trees along the bank were turning gold, leaves trembling like they were afraid to fall. Her easel was set near the water, the canvas half covered in soft blues and gray. The same valley, the same river again. You ever finish one? He asked. She didn't look up. I don't know if I believe in finishing things anymore. He smiled. That makes two of us. She turned then, eyes narrow in the light. You left things half done too, didn't you? He hesitated. Yeah. Why? Because I thought I had time. She let that hang between them, then went back to painting. They spent the rest of the morning in silence. He chopped wood while she painted. Once, he caught her watching him through the corner of her eye, but she looked away before he could meet her gaze. By noon, the sun had warmed the valley. She packed up her brushes, wiped her hands on a rag and said, Come on. Let's go into town. For what? Groceries, she said. And the world. You look like you could use both. He laughed, and it felt easy this time. They drove in her old car, the windows down. The wind carried the smell of dust and pine, and for a brief stretch of road, it felt like nothing had ever gone wrong. In town, she parked by the feed store. The same dog was sleeping on the steps, gray around the muzzle now. Inside, they bought bread, milk, coffee, a bottle of whiskey. Ellen tossed a small packet of paintbrushes into the basket. For insurance, she said when he looked at her. Against what? Stillness, she said. Outside, a man called her name. He was tall, with the kind of tan that comes from real work. His smile was easy, confident. Ellen, he said, wiping his hands on his jeans. Didn't know you were back in town. Just for the morning, she said. The man's eyes shifted to Tom. Friend of yours. An old one, she said. Tom held out a hand. Tom Ellison. Mark, the man said. Runs the hardware store now. Used to know this one when she was trouble. Ellen laughed. I'm still trouble. Mark smiled, then looked at Tom. You staying long? Don't know yet. Montana has a way of deciding that for you, Mark said. They shook hands again, firm but brief. When he was gone, Tom said, He seems friendly. He is, Ellen said. How friendly? She glanced at him. Don't start. He smiled. Didn't mean to. Yes, you did, she said. But it's fine. Everyone's friendly here. That's what happens when you stay. On the drive back, neither spoke much. The light had gone thin, the way it does before rain. When they reached the cabin, she carried the groceries inside. He stayed out a moment, staring at the river. You thinking about leaving again? She called from the porch. He turned. I'm thinking about staying. She nodded. That's a first. He smiled. Doesn't mean I will. I know, she said. But it means something. That night, the wind picked up. The sky turned the color of steel, and the air smelled like a storm that might not come. They ate in silence, simple food, the kind that fills without speaking. After dinner, she lit a candle. The light flickered against her face. Tom, she said. If you leave, leave right. Don't do it like before. He met her eyes. What's right? Say goodbye, she said. That's all. He nodded. I can do that. But they both knew he didn't know how. Outside, thunder rolled far off, low and tired. The kind of sound that carries for miles in the thin air.